Welcome to a mini lesson on the topic of motorsports branding. This is the second video I'm posting as a sneak peek into the lessons that are taught in an online motorsports marketing course that starts on January 25th. Last week, I posted a lesson on sponsorship proposals, and a week today, I'll post the final video lesson, which is on the topic of motorsports press releases. This branding lesson is applicable to any motorsports-related person and business. From a driver to all the way to a parts supply store, this information should be beneficial to understanding the importance of branding and your brand. All right, so let's get into it. Branding is sometimes a complicated and confusing subject, not to mention how it affects and can be used within the motorsports industry. This lesson will help answer the following questions. What is the difference between brands and branding? Why is branding within motorsports important? Why do brands choose certain colors, fonts, logos, and culture? And finally, what are brand guidelines and why are they important? First, let's go over definitions. So what is the difference? A brand is a name, term, design, symbol, or any other feature that identifies one seller's good or service as distinct from those of other sellers. While branding is a marketing practice in which a company creates a name, symbol, or design that is easily identifiable as belonging to the company. This helps to identify a product and distinguish it from other products and services. Further, a brand represents the identity of the person or business, not just the defined identity, but the perception you or your business conveys. So essentially, it's the connection you or your business makes with its customers. Your brand exists somewhere between what you say and do, which is your branding, and how people feel about you. It's important to note you are not in complete control of your brand. You can say and do certain things, but if it's perceived by people in a different way than your brand wants, you may not get the identity you anticipated. So now on to branding. Branding is what makes your business memorable and recognizable. Mostly this is done through visual cues such as your logo, name, or design, but it's also invisible such as the customer's experience. Companies put a great deal of time and effort into determine the right strategic branding initiatives are in place and to help create the brand they are targeting. Why is it important within motorsports? Well, just being good at something isn't usually good enough to garner attention, respect, or the dollars you think you deserve. You can't expect to be popular due to good results or because you have a good product. This is where branding comes in. It gives you your own identity and helps you give a competitive edge against competitors. Furthermore, it's important to understand branding in order to represent your partners, series, tracks, and events respectfully. Branding can change how people perceive your brand. It can drive new business and increase brand awareness. Next, we will talk about design and logos. It's a common misconception that branding is just about the graphics, which isn't true, but it is a major part. How does one create a brand image? One of the first steps is to develop a voice. This is done by asking oneself or the business the following questions. What areas of distinction do you have? So that could mean what sets you apart from the competition. Is it a championship? Is it your culture, unique name, location? What are you looking to say and or promote? So are you on the rise, based on tradition, rebuilding? And finally, what is your program's personality? So are you hardworking but quiet, have a history of being a certain way? These questions will help you find your uniqueness, your story, and tell it consistently and frequently in your visuals. That's what helps brands become recognizable. Using these answers for these questions will help narrow down the type of logo you need. Now let's talk about psychology behind logos. Logo shape. You can use your logo shapes to symbolize different ideas, direct the eye from one element to the next, convey emotion and mood, create trust and professionalism, deliver a sense of depth, and connect with your audience on a deeper level. For example, circles can imply a positive emotional message or unity and commitment, which is why a company like the Olympics utilize rings in their logo. Vertical lines communicate commitment and strength. It reflects goals and progress, which is possibly why the NASCAR logo went through rebranding some years ago to include the vertical lines. Next, logo color. Just like shapes, colors have a hidden meaning utilizing psychology as well. On the left, you can see the colors explained for large multinational companies. However, For the sake of this motorsports lesson, I made a color wheel utilizing motorsports and automotive companies, and even some of their sponsors. Within motorsports, it's easy to determine that red and blue are used most frequently, with pink being the least. Red generally stands for action, passion, strength, and energy. Meanwhile, blue can represent trust, power, loyalty, confidence, and success. All of these nouns discussed are emotions important to the motorsports demographic. Logo tips. So it's best to keep logos under 3 colors if possible, and don't make them too complicated, meaning don't have too many outlines or a lot of detail. Avoid having too much white space, so that is what it sounds like. You don't want one word 3 inches apart from another. You want everything pretty close-knit to each other. You don't have to be cliche. Just because it's a motorsports company doesn't mean you need to include a checkered flag or pattern. Not that that's wrong, but you don't have to. If you pay somebody to make one, make sure you get the high-resolution copy upon paying. Lastly, use your logo. This is a major part of branding, and your logo needs to be used on all materials possible, so that's social media, business cards, website, packaging, signage, etc. Finally, it's last to recognize drivers' logos. Oftentimes, the driver uses their number as a logo to represent their brand. What number logo comes to mind as an example? Everyone, even outside of motorsports for the most part, recognizes the famous number 3 of Dale Earnhardt. This number was almost always white with a red outline on a black background. Sure, sometimes there would be special schemes, but it was important to be consistent in order for his brand. Another option could be utilizing a signature. Dale Jr. is one that has a very distinguishable signature and has used it for branding purposes as well. Next, we go over brand identity. Brand identity is the personality of your business and the promise you make to your customers. It's what you want your customers to walk away with after they interact with your brand. Your brand identity is typically comprised of your values, how you communicate your product or your service, and what you want people to feel when they interact with it. Why brand identity matters. Personality. Identity essentially sets the tone of your brand, and it can be used to invoke specific feelings in your audience. Your brand identity should be designed to communicate your company's overall message and promote your business goals. Consistency. Developing a brand identity allows you to create a consistent message across all marketing materials. Each piece should have the same basic styles and design elements, creating a cohesive branding package. Differentiation. A brand identity helps you differentiate your business from the competition and appropriately position your brand. Developing a professional, creative identity design can help you stand out to potential customers in your market. Awareness. Creating a brand identity package ensures that your brand is at the forefront of all your marketing materials, which helps to increase brand awareness. The more places your brand is featured, the more contact it will make with consumers and the more memorable it will be. And finally, loyalty. An effective brand identity helps to build customer loyalty and trust in a brand, since it allows customers to make a connection between a product and the company. As you can see by the image, brand identity is far more than just a logo. It can also contain communication, design, culture, vision, mission, language, and behavior. Creating your brand identity. There are many methods and steps to creating a brand identity, so I will go over a few that I think are the most important for this topic. So the first step would be to ask yourself the following questions. Define your area. So why should this exist? Define your target. Who needs this? Define the target's needs. Why should they care? And fourth, define yourself. Why should they buy it from me? Now, obviously, these questions are more geared towards a business that sells a product, but that doesn't mean that these questions aren't applicable for someone like a driver or a team. For example, instead of the first question being, why should this exist? It could be, why should a sponsor choose me? Or why should fans choose to like me? Now, why would someone care may sound a bit direct and rude, but it usually really makes one think hard. If you are honest with yourself about what you have to offer and if your customer will see value in it, then you are headed in the right direction. One can start to determine their business core values by answering prompts such as these. What do you stand for? What do our customers believe about us? What do they believe we stand for? What values does our company consistently adhere to in the face of obstacles? And what are our company's greatest strengths? So, for example, here are some of Google's core values. Fast is better than slow. You don't need to be at your desk to need an answer. You can make money without doing evil. You can be serious without a suit. And great isn't just good enough. So those are just some examples. Now to step 3. Develop your unique value proposition. So just like when we were making a sponsorship proposal, it's important to convey your value within your branding. What is special about you or your company that is different from the competition? As you can see by the visual, your unique value proposition is somewhere in the middle of what your customer needs and cares about, and what your competition does very well, and what you do really well. There is that little sweet spot that is your unique value proposition. Before we leave the topic of brand identity, I want to highly recommend the book Brand Identity Breakthrough by Gregory Deal if you want to learn more about brand identity creation. I will link the book below this video in the caption. Okay, so the last major topic about branding includes style guides. So these can also be called brand guides, branding guidelines, or brand standards. Why are these guides important? Well, they help establish brand consistency. They create brand recognition. They set standard rules, ensures a cohesive message, saves time, and avoids confusion. So what's included in a style guide? Well, there is no uniform template for a style guide, as they differ from company to company, especially from small to large companies. A small company might have a 1-page style guide, and then a large company might have a 100-page style guide. So you never know. But generally, they include the following sections. So brand identity, brand strategy, brand voice, brand visuals, and brand execution. So brand identity is the history of the company, mission, values, vision, target market, and current customers. Brand strategy, so brand touch points, brand architecture, brand promise, and then the brand personality. Brand voice, so articulate the messaging and tone. So the tone would be if it's extremely professional or casual. And if you're a social media user, you can kind of see how different companies express themselves differently. So like a company such as Wendy's has a very fun social media personality and tone on at least Twitter. They kind of go viral once in a while for some of their responses and stuff, and that is part of their tone. So next, identify communication philosophy, and then they determine the company name and tagline. Brand visuals, so that one's obvious. So it's the logo, so it's a logo placement, logo variations, logo do's and don'ts, fonts, colors, and photographic styles. That is the most important and most used part within the style guide for the most part. And then finally, brand execution. So just explain how the brand is executed throughout different forms of ventures. So for example, company catalogs and packaging, logo branding on sponsored cars, website branding, and merchandise. So different companies might have different standards on how they want to be on your t-shirt type of thing. Like maybe it has to be a certain size or whatnot. That would be their standard. So some examples. So I've attached some examples: Jegs, NASCAR, and Lucas Oil. So let's look at Jegs first. Here's an example of Jegs brand standards. So they start with just an introduction about the company. Then they do an introduction on all the subtopics that they'll be covering. So that's brand identity, brand strategy, brand voice, brand visuals, and brand execution. So first is their brand identity. So it goes over their history with the whole timeline, who they are, so their mission, vision, and values, their audience, so they actually tell you who their target market is. Next is their brand strategy. So this is their brand touch points. So these are all the ways that they communicate with customers. So this is social media, this is websites, direct mail, promotional items, brochures, etc. Next is their brand architecture. So this is the main company, and then it will discuss any sub companies under that. So like they have the Jegs Foundation, or they have event brands for when they sponsor or a title sponsor for racing events and other automotive events. Their brand promise. So these are like their values, their core values. Brand personality. So these are their definitions of what they want their voice and their image to be. So as you can see, it's like fast, organized, approachable, competitive, efficient, dependable, family oriented. Brand voice is the next. This is the way that they want to express themselves with their voice. So you can see strong, engaging, enthusiastic, powerful, clear. This is how they want to express themselves. communicating their benefits, and they break it down per target market. Their name, so just their name and their tagline. And then next is the brand visuals. So this is their logo, the main logo, and then their power logo, which they use in retail in event situations, they say. Logo positioning, logo variables, and logo don'ts. So this is really important. If you pick up JEGS as a sponsor and you go and do one of these things and put it on your car sideways or angled, they're not going to like that. They want you to stick to their brand standards in this guideline. So it's important, if you do get a sponsor, to ask them if they have any brand standards and go from there. Font selection. So these are the fonts that they use in their advertisements and in their catalog. These are their colors. So it's important to use their actual color codes. So if you are putting a decal on your car, you want to make sure you use their yellow instead of the Pennzoil yellow or something like that. Photography styles. Logo library. So these are all their logos that they do have. And as you can see at the bottom, there is a link where you can go and download them in high resolution. Continued. So these are their event logos. And then finally, brand execution. So for them, they sponsor a lot of circle track and drag racing cars. So they have specific ways that they want their logo on your car. So they actually spell it out for you. This is how they would want it if they are a primary sponsor of yours. So they have drag racing, dragster, and then their apparel or merchandising. They have a specific way that they want. And as you can see, people in the pits, if they do have a JEGS uniform, it probably looks like this. Environmental, so this is like billboards. Signage, packaging, their catalog, and finally, their website design. Now, here is an example of a more simple style guide. This is simply just logos. So this is Lucas Oils. They have their two main logos, which is their crest and then the text. They have their Pantone colors listed out. It says how to do it with when you only have one color or with a background, how to do it for decals or embroidery. And then on the second page, they have their preferred format for the text, what not to do. So don't distort it. Don't make it smaller or wider. And then do not alter the colors. And then they also have contact information to contact their own graphics department. So if you did run into any issues or questions, you could always call them for clarification. In conclusion, branding is a powerful tool which can help gain recognition, increase business value, attract new customers or fans, improve employee satisfaction and pride, instill trust in both customers and employees, while also supporting advertising. Branding is much more than what was covered in this lesson, but I hope this helped answer some common questions and give you an idea of how to get started with your own branding. If you want to learn more about the Motorsports Marketing course starting on January 25th, please fill out the interest form below this video. And don't forget, my third and final mini lesson will be posted next Sunday, January 17th, and it's about motorsports press releases. Thanks for watching.